الله الرحمن الرحيم أن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As it relates to the issue of death, and what I'm going to discuss, one of the many practical ways that the Muslim man and the Muslim woman should preoccupy themselves with in terms of preparing for death, is no doubt an important topic. The man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Al-Imam al-Bukhari and Al-Imam Muslim have collected in their books of hadith, and he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the intelligent question, Ya Rasulullah, mata sa'a? Ya Rasulullah, when is the hour going to be established? The Prophet, instead of answering that question, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the man a question, and he said to him, Mada a'datta laha? What did you prepare for the hour? Instead of preoccupying yourselves with the spectacle of death itself, or instead of you preoccupying yourself with the exact time that the hour is going to be established, what makes more sense is for you to answer the question, what have you done to prepare for when the hour comes? The man responded to that question by saying, Inni uhibbullaha wa rasulahu. He said, I prepared for death for this hour, and that I love Allah and His Messenger. That's what I prepared. I'm practicing Islam. I love Allah and His Messenger, and as a result of that, I believe in everything that has been legislated in the religion. And even though I may have some human frailties, and even though I may fall short of the mark, nonetheless, I love Allah and I love His Messenger. Upon hearing that, the Prophet said to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Anta ma'a man ahbabta. Then you will be with those who you love when the hour is established. So it's from this angle, brothers and sisters, that we deal with one of the many practical ways of preparing for death. And then our beloved and respected brother Ilyas is going to deal with the issue of death itself, inshallah. No doubt, there are many things that we can mention here. We can just give you the general answer. Everyone who wants to be prepared for death, he has to practice the religion of Al-Islam. Practice the Quran and the Sunnah, and you'll be successful. The Prophet told his companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he told us in turn, ما من شيء يقربكم من الجنة إلا أمرتكم به وما من شيء يقربكم من النار إلا نهيتكم عنه. There is nothing, there is not a single thing in this dunya that will cause you people to come closer to the Jannah except I told you to do it. I ordered you to do it. I ordered you to make salat, I ordered you to fast in Ramadan, I ordered you to wear hijab, I ordered you to be diligent in taking care of your parents, and so forth and so on. And there's nothing that will cause you people to come close to the hellfire except that I prohibited you from it. So every haram in Al-Islam is prohibited because it will lead you to the hellfire. Not wearing hijab, not praying, drinking, partying, hanging out, free mixing, listening to music, all of those things that are haram will lead you to the hellfire. So it's easy for us to come and say that as the general rule, and then we all get up and we go. But everyone here already knows that if you practice Al-Islam, you will be prepared for the death, because Al-Islam, being the complete way of life, it prepares for the spectacle of death, and it prepares the Muslim who's intelligent what he needs to do in terms of being ready for this day. But I chose to talk about another issue that's from the ibadat of al-Islam, that many people are negligent concerning it, but it is vital. And there's not a single person here except that he really needs to take heed of this particular issue, all of us, and raise our level of commitment and application of this particular ibadah from the ibadat of al-Islam in preparation for death. Because this dunya that we live in, it naturally takes people away from the remembrance of Allah, and it naturally takes people away from realizing the reality that you're going to die. So the practical way that I want to talk about and share with you brothers and sisters here today, not as a lecture, but as a form of advice to you and advice to me. So I really want you to pay attention and try to comprehend and try to remember and then try to apply and practice. Because this is not just a lecture, this is nasiha to you that you're going to need. And I'm going to remind myself of the importance of it when I share it with you. So I hope no one looks and views what I'm about to say as just time to fill up for the space of the lecture. No, this is a practical way that we can use, a weapon that Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us to prepare for the death. And that practical way is ad-du'a. Ad-du'a, the ibadah of ad-du'a, the ibadah of ad-du'a. One of the greatest forms of ibadah in al-Islam is ad-du'a. The one that the Prophet said about it, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man la yad'u Allah yaghdab alayhi. Whoever does not make dua to Allah, Allah becomes angry with that individual. And that is because there's not a single brother sitting here or a single sister sitting here except that we are all in need of a dua. And your success is only if Allah Ta'ala makes you successful. There are those of us who have issues, we want to get married. You're not going to get married unless Allah gives you the tawfiq. There are those from amongst us, we have relatives who are gravely ill. They will not become well except if Allah wills it. There are those of us who have other issues. There's not a single person here except that he needs to make more dua because everyone is in need. So Allah has established in the Quran, أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. You people are poor and you are in need as it relates to Allah. So with that being the case, why don't the people call on Allah more often? Me as an individual, you as an individual, knowing the importance of calling on Allah, why don't we call on Allah more often? So the one who doesn't make dua to Allah, Allah Azza wa Jalla becomes angry with him because that's a sign of kibr. That's a sign of that person being arrogant and seeing himself as being self-sufficient. He doesn't have to rely on anyone else. So Allah becomes angry with that individual. Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran in describing the believers, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمْ أُدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ إِبَادَتِهِ سَيَدْخُلُونَ جَهَنَّمَ دَاخِرِينَ. And your Lord has said to you, call on me and I will answer your supplication. For whatever you need, call on me and I will answer your dua. Verily those people who are arrogant and they refuse to make dua, they will enter into the hellfire from those who are lowly. So what did the Prophet teach us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He taught us as it relates to death, we have to pray every single day 5 times a day, at least. Everyone has to pray 5 times a day. Praying is going to bring you closer to Jannah. A person doesn't make a sajda except that it raises his level in the akhirah. If he's not making sajda, he will not get that elevation, obviously. In this prayer that we make, Rasulullah told one of his companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a dua to make after each and every salah. He told him to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika من عذاب جهنم وعذاب القبر وفتنة المحيا والممات وشر فتنة المسيح الدجال. Say that at the end of each of your prayers, whether it is before the taslim, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, or after the taslim. But it should be before the taslim. That's the strongest opinion. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment of the hellfire. And I seek refuge in you from the punishment of the grave that's going to take place. And I seek refuge in you from the fitna of living and the fitna of death. The fitna of living is that I become incognizant about why I have been created and why I have been placed in this earth. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created mankind and the jinn except for the sole purpose of worshiping me. Getting a degree from Aston University is a vehicle in worshiping Allah, and it is not the goal and the objective as to why we've been created. Getting married is a vehicle to worshiping Allah, and it is not the goal and the objective as to why Allah Azza wa Jalla has created us. So I seek refuge in you from the fitna of the mahya, of this life, the life that is designed to take me away from the remembrance of Allah, to do those things that are going to cause me to come closer to the Jannah and take me to the paradise that Allah has prepared for the mu'mineen. And I seek refuge in you from the fitna of death, that I may die on other than the religion of al-Islam, that I may die like the Pope died on other than the religion of al-Islam. And the reason why I mention the Pope is because I've been amazed to hear that Muslims today don't even know that a person who is the representative of kufr and shirk and the representative of making polytheism, setting up partners and idols along with Allah Azza wa Jal, Muslims don't know that that individual goes to the hellfire. Muslims today will tell you, no, he's from the Ahl al-Jannah, or we don't know what the man died on. But Allah Ta'ala, in the eloquence of the Quran, in so many ayats, He has told us, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ الثَّلَاثَةِ. They have disbelieved those who say that Allah is one of three. From the eloquence of the Quran is that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran in so many ayat, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا عَنْهَا لا تفتح لهم أبواب السماء ولا يدخلون الجنة حتى يلج الجمل في سم الخياط. Those people who reject and they disbelieve in our signs, the doors of the paradise, of the skies, of the heavens will never be open for them, and they will never enter into the Jannah until the camel can pass through the eye of a needle. So if someone were to take the needle and he were to ask himself the rhetorical question, will a camel ever be able to pass through the eye of a needle? He's going to say, La wallahi. That's Allah's way in eloquence. The Quran stating to us that if a person dies on other than the deen of al-Islam, the fitna of the death and the fitna of this life, if he dies on other than the deen of al-Islam, he's going to be in trouble. And that's a point that no Muslim should be in doubt about. So this hadith or this ayat that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to teach the companions, this dua, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment of the Jahannam, and I seek refuge in you from the punishment that's going to take place in the grave. I seek refuge in you as well from the fitna of the hayat and the fitna of al-mamat, al-maut, from the death, and I seek refuge in you from the fitna of al-masih, al-dajjal, from the Dajjal when he comes. That goes to show that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught his companions one of the practical ways of preparing for death is to preoccupy yourself with making dua, because no one can be successful in the thing that he wants to accomplish, whatever it is, no matter how big it is, no matter how small it is. The success is only with Allah Azza wa Jalla. So as it relates to the dua, ikhwani, being a revert to al-Islam, being a person who has taken the teachings of al-Islam directly from the sources, the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has been understood by the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa radiyallahu anhum, as has been taught by the great scholars of al-Islam, past and present, like al-Imam Abu Hanifa and other than him, rahimahullah ta'ala. Being a revert to al-Islam, I've come to see, as it relates to the ibadat, the worship in al-Islam, the Muslims are doing a lot of things, and we're doing them different ways. So what we want to do here today, as it relates to the dua and the importance of the dua, is we want to share with you some of the etiquettes that you need to know about in order to make the right dua, because there are many people who make dua but the dua is not answered One of the reasons it's not answered is because we're not knocking on the door the proper way. We're not making the dua the proper way. There are certain things that should be done and that shouldn't be done as it relates to dua in order to make the dua answer. So what I want to do is, I want to teach you brothers and you sisters in talking about this practical aspect of preparing for death and asking Allah, making dua to make us of those people who die on this deen. And tackling this subject, we want to draw your attention to another issue we're going to draw upon, and that is the etiquette of a dua that we see in Surah Al-Fatiha. The etiquette of a dua that we see in Surah Al-Fatiha. Some of you have memorized Usamah, and some of you only memorized 2 or 3 surahs of the Quran. Some of us memorize some of those ayat in surah that are well known in the Muslim world, like Surah Al-Yasin, the beginning of Baqarah, the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf, and so forth and so on. Everyone is on a different level. But there's no one here from the Muslims except that you've memorized Surah Al-Fatiha. But this surah, Ikhwani, is a surah of the Quran that many people do not reflect upon the treasures that are contained in the surah itself. The surah that the Prophet described, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he told his companion, shall I not teach you the greatest surah of the Quran? The single greatest surah of the whole Quran, shall I not teach you? The man said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. He said, sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wasallam, Al-Fatihatu hiya sab'un muthani wal Qur'anul azim alladhi utituhu. He said it is Surah Al-Fatiha. It is the 7 oft repeated verses and the magnificent Quran that I have been given. The greatest surah of the Quran is Surah Al-Fatiha. It is the 7 oft repeated verses and the magnificent Quran that I have been given. Surah Al-Fatiha also, Ikhwan, brothers and sisters, is known as Kitab, the mother of the book, showing its importance. It is the mother of the Quran. Surah Al-Fatiha is memorized by everyone here because if you're praying, you're going to read Surah Al-Fatiha at least 17 times every single day. You may forget some surah that you learned when you were a child. You may forget some of the ayat of a surah that you're working on right now or that you remembered recently. You may forget, but no one ever messes up or forgets the ayat of Surah Al-Fatiha because we read it so many times. There were a group of companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who were on a trip, and they came upon a group of Arabs in the desert, and they requested from those Arabs to give them some hospitality since they were in the middle of the desert and they were kind of like wayfarers. Because those Arabs weren't Muslims and they had enmity towards the Muslims, they refused to give them any hospitality. So the companions, under the emirship of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, they continued their trip. Allah Ta'ala caused the leader of those people who refused the hospitality to the companions to be stung by a scorpion or bit by a poisonous snake. The leader many times has to bear the brunt of the burden of the decisions that his people make, because he is ultimately the one who's responsible. So when the people said, no, we're not going to give you hospitality, the scorpion, the snake, bit the leader. He was dying from the poison. So the people said amongst themselves, why don't you go and ask those people who came from Medina, radiyallahu anhum, go ask them, do they have any local medicines that we can give to the leader? So they went to the companions and they asked them, do they have anything? The companions in this situation, they had the upper hand. They could have made it personal. They could have said to the people, no, you remember what you did? You guys refused us hospitality, so we're not doing anything for you. But that wasn't the way of the companions, and that's not the way of the Muslims. The Muslims are not a group of people who are irresponsible and they just go and they want to destroy. They are destructive. Muslims are builders. Muslims are responsible. Muslims are constructive. Muslims have been placed on this earth to worship Allah, and in worshiping Allah, bringing good to the people. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. You people are the best people who have been brought forth for the people. We don't go and cause people to hate the religion of Islam, disrupt the normal way people live, get rid of security that is a right of every human being, whether he is a Muslim or non-Muslim. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, yes, I have something I can perform on him, but before I do this, I want you people to agree to give us something in return. Give us 30 sheep, a sheep for each man in our group. Those people agreed. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri went back and he read over the man Surah Al-Fatiha. This is in Sahih al-Bukhari, in the chapter of the virtues of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. He read over the man 7 times, Surah Al-Fatiha. After the 7th time, he spit on the man. Because after the person reads Surah Al-Fatiha or any aspect of the Quran, the spittle that comes out of his mouth after that has barakah on it. So when he read Surah Al-Fatiha 7 times over the sick man, the man stood up and started walking around as if he was okay. So the kuffar gave them the camels. Each man said, give me my camel. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, no, we have to go see if this was okay. We have to ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they got to Medina, they told him the story. Rasulullah said to Abu Sa'id al-Khudri sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wa radiyallahu an Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, he said, وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ أَنَّهَا رُقْيَةٌ. How did you know, Abu Sa'id, that Surah Al-Fatiha was a ruqyah? How did you know that Surah Al-Fatiha is a surah that if the woman is experiencing the pains that she get at the beginning of each month, she can just read Surah Al-Fatiha on herself? The person who's suffering from some type of sickness or disease, before spending money to go to the doctor or here or there, he uses the Quran. But because of the weak iman in the Quran, we don't think about that. We think about the monetary ways of curing ourselves. And Allah has mentioned in the Quran, وَنُنَزِّرُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We have revealed in the Quran that which is a shifa and a rahmah to the believers. So those of you who are studying, Ikhwan, brothers and sisters, as it relates to your tests, your exams that you're about to take, you become stressed out. Wallahi, there's a dua for stress and anxiety. From the benefits of the Quran is to read the Quran over yourself, whatever the surah is, Surah Al-Fatiha. It'll take away the anxiety and the stress. It will take away, wallahi, some of the more serious diseases that people are dealing with. But you have to have iman. So, Surah Al-Fatiha is, without doubt, the greatest surah of the Quran. And in that surah, there are some etiquettes that we need to learn as it relates to making dua. The first and most important etiquette that comes from Surah Al-Fatiha that I want you guys to remember, from the etiquettes of making dua from Surah Al-Fatiha, is that the person who's making dua, he has to make dua to Allah, and he has to make dua with ikhlas. He cannot make dua to other than Allah. Someone may sit there and say, well, that's elementary, fundamental, we all know that. We all know that, but we don't all practice that, and that's not manifested in the Islam of the vast majority of Muslims, especially those who are from the Asian persuasion. The Asian persuasion. Since I've come to England and I've started to live and mix with the Asians, I've seen a lot of strange things, and this is not something peculiar to Asians. If you go to Africa, the same issue, African version of Islam. If you go to the Arabs, the Arab version of Al-Islam. What we want is, we want the pure Islam, from A to Z, the pure Islam. As for the people's culture, those cultural aspects that are not connected to the deen, no problem. But allowing the culture into the deen is a major problem. Making dua only to Allah with ikhlas. Where's the proof of that? The proof of that from Surah Al-Fatiha is that Allah Ta'ala told us to say in Surah Al-Fatiha, and Surah Al-Fatiha is a dua itself. And the proof that it is a dua is that after you read Surah Al-Fatiha, غَيْرُ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا everyone says Ameen, because it's a dua. Allah answered that dua. As it relates to ikhlas, the proof of having ikhlas in the dua is the statement of Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Fatiha, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You are the one that we worship, and you're the one who we seek your aid and your assistance. That's Surah Al-Fatiha, the dua of the believers from Surah Al-Fatiha. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You're the one we worship, and you're the one who we seek aid from. That is the theoretic understanding of ibadah. That is only for Allah. But I'm sure some of you would attest to the fact that if you go into the home of the Muslim, you will find the picture, Ya Allah, Ya Muhammad. Oh Allah, oh Muhammad. Ya Ali al-Madad. Ya Muhammad is not permissible. Ya Ali al-Madad is not permissible. Someone, he wants to get married. Someone, he wants to accomplish something. He goes to the Pir Sahib and he says to the Pir Sahib, do this, do that, do this. And sometimes he's advised to do something that's from the shirk and the kufr of al-Islam. If you tell someone, you cannot say Ya Muhammad, you have to only say Ya Allah, the person will say, you don't love Rasulullah, you are Wahhabi. You don't love Rasulullah, you are Wahhabi. But I want to share something with you, brothers and sisters, to show the double standards of the Muslims today. Double standards. A few years ago, I lost my youngest brother. He had a disease called sickle cell anemia. That's a blood disease that afflicts African Americans and Africans only. Asians don't get it. Caucasians don't get it. African Americans, problems in the blood. When he was dying, being the youngest of 4 children, when he was dying, my mother was in the hospital and the doctor said to her, there's nothing we can do for him, Miss Mamie. You just have to pray, that's all. It's just a matter of time. My mother has always looked at him as being her favorite child because he's the youngest and he's been sick with the disease all of his life, suffered, struggled. So my mother, while he was on his deathbed in the hospital, she got on top of him from the side of the bed and she was hugging him and she was crying. Tears were coming out of her eyes, mucus was coming out of her nose, and she was making dua with ikhlas. And she was saying, oh Jesus, my baby Jesus, don't take my baby, oh Jesus, please. Wallahi, if any one of you would have walked into that room, if your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, great-grandfather who can't read or write, they're from the village in Mirpur, they can't read and write, had they walked into the room at that moment, they would have said, Ya Miss Mamie, Wallahi, calling on Jesus will never help your baby. Jesus can't help himself. And Wallahi, that's the haqq, that's the truth. Jesus can't help himself. But why is it now, after we say that to Miss Mamie, my mother, we turn around and say, Ya Muhammad, Ya Muhammad. The Prophet came out, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to the people who were the closest people to him, Ya Abbas, Amma Rasulillah, Sal min mali ma shit, fa inni la amliku laka min Allahi shay'a. Ya Safiya, Ammatu ya Rasulillah, سلي من مالي ما شئت فإني لا أملك لك من الله شيئا. يا فاطمة بنت رسول الله سلي من مالي ما شئت فإني لا أملك لك من الله شيئا. Oh Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah, ask from my money whatever you want, I'll give it to you, but I cannot help you with Allah. Oh Safiya, the aunt of Rasulullah, ask for my money whatever you want, I'll give it to you, but I can't help you with Allah. Oh Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah, ask for my money whatever you want, but I cannot help you as it relates to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Those are the closest people to Rasulullah, and he's telling them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I can't help you. Now you think that you're going to come not practice the deen, You're going to come and knock on the door only when you get in trouble, and instead of going directly to Allah Azza wa Jalla, you're going to go through Rasulillah. And he said to those who were close with him, I can't help you, but he's going to help you. No, it doesn't make sense. So, Iyaka na'bud wa iyaka nasta'een. The companion Abu Sa'id or Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, who was a prolific companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked the Prophet an intelligent question that caused the Prophet's heart to become tranquil, and he became pleased with the questioner. And he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, man as'adun nas bi shafa'atik yawm al-qiyamah. Which one of us will have the most right to getting your intercession yawm al-qiyamah? We are making a lot of mistakes. We miss out on salah. We believe in Allah, we believe in the Messenger of Allah, we believe in Islam, but we are weak as human beings. This one has a girlfriend, that one is drinking khamr, that one is smoking crack, that one is smoking weed, this one is not praying, that one she doesn't wear hijab, but she believes in Allah and His Messenger. You put a gun to her head, what do you believe in? She's going to say Allah and His Messenger. Do you believe Isa is the Ibn of Allah? She says, Wallahi, I don't believe that. Then why are you not wearing hijab? I'm just weak, make dua for me. So we have these shortcomings. Yawm al-Qiyamah, Rasulullah sallallahu will have intercession for his community. People will go to the hellfire, he will intercede. He'll take some out, and some people he will even save from going in at all. So Abu Hurairah wanted to know, which one of us will have the most right to that shifa? Rasulullah said, I didn't think anyone would precede you to that question, Abu Hurairah. You're the student who's always around me. You're learning the hadith. You're learning the deen. It's only natural that someone like you who's paying attention to your religion will come up with an intelligent question like that. And then he answered and he said, As'adun nas bi shafa'ati yawm al-qiyamah man qala la ilaha illallah khalisan min qalbihi. The one who will have the most right to my shifa'a yawm al-qiyamah is the one who says la ilaha illallah with ikhlas from his heart. He says la ilaha illallah with ikhlas. And ikhlas means what? He says it with his lisan, and you can see it on his jawarih. You see it on his limbs. So if someone wants to sit back and just rely on I'm a Muslim, is not enough. The one who Rasulullah will intercede for sallallahu is the one who makes ikhlas. فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And whoever wants to meet Allah, you know you're going to meet Allah, then let him do the righteous deeds and actions, and don't make shirk with Allah. Don't set up partners. No angel, no righteous man, no peer, no Nabi. Rasulullah sallallahu is our intermediary in terms of showing us how to gain Allah's pleasure. But wallahi, he doesn't deserve to be worshipped, nor should we say, Ya Rasulullah. We only make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. So, from the etiquette of a dua is to get away from asking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ask Allah directly. The second etiquette from the Quran is that in making dua, we all have to come to realize that the correct way of making dua is that it has to be in accordance to the sunnah. It has to be in accordance to the way Rasulullah made the dua, and the way his companions made the dua, not in the way that we want to make the dua, the ibadat of al-Islam, unless we want to be like the Christians and the Jews. Those people who Rasulullah said about them and us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سُنَّنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلُكُمْ شِبْرٌ بِشِبْرٍ وَذَرَاءٌ بِذَرَاءٍ حَتَّى لَوْ دَخَلُوا حُفْرَةَ دُبٍّ لَدَخَلْتَمُوهَا. You people are going to follow the ways of the people who came before you. A handspan by a handspan, an arm span by an arm span, to the point if they were to enter into the lizard's hole, you people will enter into the lizard's hole. The lizard's hole. If the lizard goes into his hole and you caught him before he got all the way in, you caught him by the tail, but he's inside the hole. Wallahi, you're going to separate the lizard from his body. You're going to break his tail off before you pull him out of the hole, because once he gets in that hole, he's in there. So that's Rasulullah's way of telling us everything that those people did, you people are going to do it. They worshipped Isa ibn Maryam, you people are going to worship me. By making dua to me, by saying I'm from the nur of Allah, by raising me above the station that I deserve. I'm Abdullah and his messenger, not from the nur of Allah. I don't know the unseen unless Allah tells me, and so forth and so on. So as it relates to dua, our dua is ibadah, and it has to be done according to what Rasulullah ﷺ and his companions brought. That's from Surah Al-Fatiha. Where is that in Surah Al-Fatiha? That is in the statement of Allah Ta'ala, صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. صِرَاطَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ. The path of those people who you gave them your ni'mah. Guide us to the straight path. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. Guide us to the sirat that is straight, the path of those people you gave them your favor. The scholars of the tafsir of the Quran, when they explain the sirat al-mustaqim, everyone knows it's the straight path. But the scholars of Islam said the sirat al-mustaqim is the sirat of the companions. They are the example. Allah knew that they were the ones who had to be the vanguard of al-Islam, because if he would have made us responsible for carrying this deen and establishing this deen, we would have dropped the ball. We would have dropped the ball.